Okay, so again, the book was, just really had the mechanics of doing visualizations in Excel. So I wanted to give a little bit of a business overview to visualization. So this is the book definition of visualization. And in a way, it's really just being able to use, make sense, analyze, and interpret data. As data sets have got bigger and bigger and bigger, we've gone from smaller data sets to data sets which are billions and billions of records. We need to kind of make sense of the data, even though it's very hard to like understand one record out of a billion. So it's just the process of, analyzing and making decisions from data using visual representations. And this was my little definition I used in a previous class. One thing I'll note is that visualization means a lot of different things to different people. Um, you know, for a computer scientist or engineer, there's maybe complex scientific visualizations. Quite often, visualization in business is quite simple summaries, but there's a range of visualizations used in a lot of different disciplines. So these are some of the tools that we can use for visualization, and I'll show you on the web in a minute. And there's kind of we can split them into a few different groups. There's maybe the programmatic languages, so there's Python, R, Java also has a lot of good visualization tools. And maybe there's the business productivity, for example, Tableau, Power BI, and maybe you would include Excel with this. And increasingly, there's a range of kind of data, custom bespoke data visualization tools for kind of different um, domains. The idea being that, here's the special ones for graphs, special ones for charts, special visualization tools for maps, etc. So there's a range, and I kind of included two different links. For example, data-driven documents, fusion charts. There's a range of different kind of tools, and there's general tools, but also kind of more specific tools. For example, maybe a mapping tool, or maybe a tool for a specific type of business visualization. Or for example, here, you might have a tool specifically for analyzing stock information. And there's generally, over the last maybe, 5, 10 years, there's been a rise of business intelligence software, what I would call business intelligence data viz software, where we are kind of utilizing data and we're trying to summarize business data in order to make decisions. And the two leading kind of packages in this category are Tableau, which started, I think, in 2003. And it's now been bought out in the last year by Salesforce, and Power BI, which is owned by Microsoft. Interestingly, they offer similar things, data summaries, different types of visualization, the ability to create online data dashboards, create your own data apps. I think Power BI has Microsoft's backing, so I think it's on an upward trend at the moment. Tableau did very well by giving out free academic software and then forcing businesses to pay for it. Power BI, Microsoft actually have it as part of their Office packages. So a lot of businesses will get Power BI, regardless of whether they use it or not. And I think I've got something here. Yeah, Power BI versus Tableau. So kind of just gives you if you want to check out this link, just kind of gives you an overview of the two major packages. And here's the interest from Google Trends over time. And you can see that Power BI is increasing while Tableau is kind of pretty much on the level. And we go down, and here we go. Just some kind of more information. It says, yeah, Power BI probably has a little bit of an advantage over Tableau when it kind of comes to kind of pricing. But both tools are quite widely used. And when I teach my undergrad classes, some of the businesses actually, would say that they would have a need for both of these tools. And the last little, I actually did a little search for information visualization, which I think was actually kind of quite cool. And that just kind of gives you, it's just using Google, gives you kind of a range of different visualizations that are available. So if you want to kind of have a think of the scope of information visualization, just kind of do that web search. And, Google will actually let you search for different types of visualizations as well. Okay, so the next little thing I'll talk about is data dashboards. Now, one thing I realized was that what we call analytics in maybe academia and science is quite often different from what businesses will call analytics. For example, I might call analytics some complex predictive model. Quite often analytics in a corporate setting are really just kind of, data summaries, almost like things you would do in pivot tables. Or they might be, for example, just simple dashboards, showing major statistics and showing major results. So a dashboard really is, generally it's multiple visualizations put together. And the idea is to kind of tell some sort of coherent story. I've got a good example here, and this is from Salesforce. Now, what Salesforce do is, here we go. And I promise you, I do not work for Salesforce, but I just like using some of the examples. Is that, for example, Salesforce will have different kind of dashboards for different people for different jobs. So we've got kind of a campaign management dashboard here, where we're looking at the different, a summary of the overall campaigns, how far they've gone down through the marketing funnel, what status they are. And then we get some sort of business forecasting dashboard. And we have our friendly waterfall chart that we actually created in Excel as part of this class. We have a sales leadership dashboard. And this is kind of almost like sales management. You're looking at the quotas versus your salespeople. You're looking at salespeople performance, etc. And then we've got a general win-loss where we're looking at different deals and whether we've won them or lost them. So when I worked with a sales team, it was at Dow Jones. We basically had two competitors. Those were Reuters and Bloomberg. And generally with a certain client, it would be a win-loss. Did we win, or did Reuters win, or did Bloomberg win? And then general overview of sales activities, and then a high-level executive view for maybe the top management. So the idea is a data dashboard will show you different visualizations or different results. There might be results of predictive analytics, predicting which customers are going to renew, but they would probably be in summary format. There wouldn't be like a lot of statistics and p-values and complex math. The data dashboard would just be kind of an overview of that. And I did have a couple of, I think I had this. This was actually kind of quite nice. Here it is. It just kind of shows some examples of that good dashboards. So we've got, like, for example, mobile dashboards, where we just this was kind of a dashboard for your home energy usage, which I thought was quite cool. We've got Napoleon's 1812 March. This was actually a classic version of an initial use of information visualization. This was like cholera in London. There was a big outbreak of cholera, and they couldn't find out where the cholera, what the cause of this was. But somebody mapped the cases and found they clustered around a certain water pump, and then they found that this water pump was the cause of the cholera death. So it was used for epidemiology, history of rock and roll, geographic visualizations, populations, different composers, what they did with their lives, etc. So, and then kind of more down to more kind of conventional business dashboards. So big dashboards are used for business, but generally a dashboard is a way of telling a data story. So you can use it for non-business examples, as I showed above. So here's a one more example of dashboard. This was actually predictive. I wanted to do one which had predictive analytics, and one application of predictive analytics for security is you're trying to predict. For example, for data security, you've got bots, automated web crawlers that are looking through your website, and you want to know which are good and which are bad. So you want search engines to go through your website because when they list you, it will give you visibility, but people might be trying to scrape information off your website and steal information. People might be trying to impersonate your company. So you want to try and work out which are the good bots, which are the good bots and the bad bots, and then coordinate your security response accordingly. And this was nice dashboard. So I'll give a few more examples. This is one from my own work. So this is like a market segmentation. And here we have brands of yogurt, and we segment them based on consumer preferences, which yogurts consumers do together, into different kind of clusters of different segments of the market. And this is just showing a mapping based on consumer preferences of which brands were close to each other. This was kind of the one to the top right was a zoom in, where we see the boundary of two clusters. And then we kind of compare the clusters to the different product features. This was another example. This was a geographic visualization. Again, I kind of clustered different restaurants on usages, and then just showed them this is actually a map of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and the different clusters of restaurants in Milwaukee. I'll just skip over this because this is a little bit more technical, but I just wanted to give an example of an R visualization. And again, this was the same application, but this time we were looking at kind of again, these clusters and just seeing how important the different attributes were. So we could see here that brand was a pretty important in determining consumer preferences, and it was actually more important than the type of yogurt, whether it was low fat or high fat. And here on my last example, the restaurants, what was determining consumer preferences, and in fact, it was like the neighborhood was much more important than the category of the restaurant, which is, it's kind of location, location, location. People would want to try, people are quite variety seeking when it comes to restaurants. We don't want the same cuisine every week. So people would try a range of different restaurants in their local neighborhood. And this, I won't go through that, something similar. And we'll talk more about this. But this was, I was running some automated text mining on online reviews, and we extracted emotions, and we're seeing which emotions were kind of correlated with each other, and this was just a simple correlation chart. So here's another example of a business. This is again where we kind of split consumers into different consumer segments based on socioeconomic status, demographics, lifestyles, etc. And we have these. This is the Prism segmentation, which is a commercial consumer segmentation. And what we were doing is we were looking at these different segments here, and then we were seeing, how likely these different segments were liable to order on Amazon.com. And you can see here these elite suburbs, second city, urban upscale were very much likely to order on Amazon.com. But some of these segments had more than double the average, or 2.5 the average consumer orders. But other segments only had 20% of the average orders on Amazon.com. So Amazon could use this to either target the segments which they're strong with, or wonder why we're not reaching some of these weak segments. And is it a case of our products are not appealing to these segments? Do these people just by habit always go to local shops, etc., etc.? So this was like a segmentation for Amazon to understand their market a little bit. And very similar, this was just exactly the same thing for Walmart versus Walmart.com. And again, you can see it's very similar that some segments, had over double the average shop on Walmart.com, and some had virtually no, shop on Walmart.com. So here's a nice little example of a database segmentation, though you won't actually, you would have to log in for this one. So we can't actually see it. But this is an idea where we look at different geographical areas, and we can actually see, a certain area, which is the kind of the dominant segment in that area. I mean, this would be used for kind of retail location or retail planning, for example. If we're locating a new store, what are the major consumer segments in this particular area? Okay, so to finish, that was just, my little broad intro to um, business data. I'm sure you all have your own perspectives, and we'll have a little discussion question on it this coming week. Just kind of a few little, it's a bit of fun just to show you some bad visualizations. There's no one right way of doing a visualization, but we can usually identify some bad visualizations. So this is from a real classic in visualization, which is Tufte 2001. And just saying a good graph should do the following. It should show the data, should make the reader think about the data. So that, the reader should be not thinking about the data. They shouldn't be thinking about, the fanciness of the graph. The graph should make the users think about the data. We should avoid distortion. We want as much information as possible with a minimum amount of ink or, computer pixels these days. We want to make large data sets coherent. And we want to, again, it's all about getting the reader, the person watching the visualization thinking. They want to be able to do comparisons. They want to be able to gain inference, reveal the data. Okay, so we've got two bar graphs that show this first thing. And the idea on this example is we have two different types of therapy. And we have kind of some results in terms of dependent variable on thoughts and actions. And we want to just see these three different types of therapy, how they relate to these dependent variables, thoughts and actions. And it's kind of pretty clear here. We can see, obviously, the thoughts. We can see it's lower for CBT than it is for BT. But we can see the actions is a little bit kind of the opposite. But we put that in a 3D graph, and it's just very difficult to say. Generally, with visualizations, I'd say be very, very careful of 3D. So this is and this is going back a long way, but this was just a bit of a mess up on the news. And this is a pie chart, and it's like, obviously there was some data, and it says, do you approve a certain candidate? And you could approve of more than one candidate. And there was a mess up in that they tried to put all of it in a pie chart, which is not going to work, because a pie chart, really the idea is it adds up to 100%. This was like a British example. We were celebrating the birth of the NHS. And it's really just, again, you're thinking more about the cake and what's going on with the visualization than the actual data. And again, it's a pie chart that adds up to, I think, over 100%. So just too many things wrong with that. And just a very confusing color scheme. Everything is like a shade of pink, so you can't really see what's what. And again, this was origins of food consumed in the UK. There's probably a better way of showing this in a pie chart. Pie charts are best when you have, a categorical variable with maybe less than 10 categories in it. And even though we've got 100 countries in other, there's just too much mess here. It's just really not an appropriate use of a pie chart. And again, this is just a bad example of 3D. This is a line graph in 3D. And it's, you've got 3D in Excel. Do you want to use it? Well, probably not always. And this is just saying we're examining the hardware parts market over time and the profit. But again, you're thinking more about the graph here, and it's hard to see the differences as everything's in 3D. This would be better as a simple bar or line graph. And one more example, and again, this one at the bottom left, you can't really see that green. It's just everything's kind of crowding everything out, and it's just not a good graph. So this is just the last little thing to think about scale, and there's no kind of right answer here. You want to look at the difference in house prices. Now, if house prices have only increased a little bit, then this is like the one on the right, in terms of proportion, is the most realistic, but you can't really see much in terms of the change. And here on the left, obviously, we can't interpret it. Somebody's maybe going to interpret it. The house prices were triple in 1999 than they were in 1998. That's the issue with this sort of visualization, but you can see the differences more clearly. So here's a good one. This was, and again, it's not being political, but this is a great example of a visualization, in that the one going up was saying, hey, employment's gone up from 28.8 million to 29.9 million. To make this seem bigger, we've actually started off with a base of 28 million, but we're saying here the deficit's gone down. We're actually going to use a base of 0. So this was an example of this figure here, just trying to make it look a much bigger jump, that we actually used relative base of 28, but this one we used a base of 0. So I just thought that was kind of quite cool, just to get you to think a little bit. Okay, so I try and keep these relatively short and sweet, but those were just a few of my thoughts on visualization and business visualization. And of course, you've got lots of technical Excel videos this week, and I'll try and put up a discussion on this.